Hello, everyone. Now, it looks like the end of the war in Ukraine could be close, and this is due to President Trump coming in as the leader of the United States, and he's appointed as his Secretary of State for Defence, Pete Hesgeth. And he made an announcement just recently saying that what is going to happen in the Ukraine as far as the United States, is concerned, is that they are no longer going to say that Ukraine should join NATO. In fact, they're going to rule it out. So Ukraine is never going to join NATO. The US is also going to stop giving weapons and money to Ukraine. And they've given, I think, over $60 billion in aid. I might be wrong. It might be even more over the last 3 years since this conflict began. And I think American taxpayers are very unhappy about that. I know certainly in the UK, where I am, the Starmer regime has promised to continue giving £3 billion a year in military aid or lethal aid to the Zelensky regime. And people here in the UK are very, very unhappy about that. It's been going on for about 3 years under Liz Truss and Boris Johnson before her, Rishi Sunak after her, Keir Starmer. So we're in basically the fourth prime minister of the UK since this conflict has started between Ukraine and Russia, as the media would present it. Of course, it didn't start in 2022. It goes all the way back to 2014 when there was the deep state-backed coup in Ukraine that put in puppet presidents who had promised were on the hook to deliver Ukraine into the EU and NATO. That's not going to happen, and they're not going to get any more money from the USA. And also what Pete Hesgeth has said as the Secretary of State for the USA is that there should be a ceasefire, essentially, on the line where the conflict is at the moment. So territorial gains by Russia during this conflict, which, by the way, are mostly in Russian areas. Let's just bring up this map here. This is the current situation. The areas in purple were areas that were separated or autonomous before the conflict started in 2022. The red areas are areas that the Russian army has taken over. Mostly Russians live there in the oblasts of Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporozhye, and Kherson. So they're very happy to be part of Russia now. That's essentially Novorossiya. Zelensky is insisting that they should return to the borders before 2014. So all of these areas, not just the red parts, but the purple parts as well, that were before the Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republics and Crimea, should be given back to Zelensky and Ukraine, and Russia should withdraw from there. I suppose there would be some kind of ethnic cleansing, which was what was going on between 2014 and 2022 in the Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republics anyway, with lots of shelling and killing of ethnic Russians in those areas. The media never talks about that in the West, but that's what was going on for 8 years before the current phase of the conflict started, with Russia going in to defend ethnic Russians against the killing that was going on there. But Zelensky wants it all back, but America has now said, no, that's not going to happen. That's unrealistic. And of course it is. Russia is not going to give up the territory that it occupies at the moment, which is occupied by people who are Russian and who are very happy to be part of Russia. So it's a sensible call to say, let's stop the conflict on the current lines. You know, that's not necessarily what's exactly going to happen, but that's a good starting point for talking and negotiations. Hopefully they will get the two sides together, and for the benefit of the people, the ordinary people on both sides, who are the losers in this campaign, the people who are being slaughtered, especially Ukrainian men who are being forced by press gangs to be militarized, join the army, and go to the front line, fight, and then most of them die within a very, very short time. This is no good for Ukraine. And I think even the Ukrainian people realize this at the moment. It's no good for the young men on both sides. We need to stop the killing in this situation. And if only we'd had as wise leaders, as leaders who are as wise as we have now, after President Trump's election, President Trump himself and Pete Hesgeth speaking on this situation, perhaps the million or so people that have been slaughtered in this conflict would still be alive. And that is a tragedy, absolute tragedy. So there is, from President Trump's administration, I think a lot of will and determination to stop this from happening. We still have crazy, bloodthirsty leaders in Europe who want to keep this going, not because they care about Ukraine, but because they are somehow invested in the economic annexation of Ukraine, just as the Biden regime was, and wanting to plunder its mineral resources and farmland and agricultural resources for their own benefits, but not for the benefit of the people who live there. So let's hope that this happens. And America now saying no more money. No, you're not going to join NATO. No, you're not going to get back all the land where Russians lived and are now happily living in Russia. Essentially, that's the life that they're in at the moment. That's very good. And let's hope that this leads to an end to this war or conflict very, very soon. Thanks for listening, everybody, and God bless you all.